Hello, everyone, and very welcome to yet another webinar by Storyals. Today, we will be looking at Copilot in action. My name is Ulrika Hedlund. I'm the founder and CEO of Storyals. We are a Swedish edtech company with a mission to inspire, motivate, and educate users on new digital ways of working. And oh man, have things moved quickly in the digital workplace with the introduction of artificial intelligence and tools such as Copilot. Before you enable Copilot in your organization, it's extremely important that you do the work and that you prepare your data for Copilot. We did hold a webinar on this topic called Get Ready for Copilot. So if you missed it, you can watch the recording on demand. So just sign up to get the link on our website. So today we're going to be talking about Copilot in action and what it's like from an end user perspective using Copilot. With me here today, I also have my dear colleagues. You'll be hearing more from Midhun, our global administrator, and also my colleague Julianne. And we have Kate behind the scenes monitoring the chat. So please do post your questions in the chat and we will get to them throughout this webinar. So when we talk about Copilot, we first need to determine what we are talking about. So in today's webinar, we will be focusing on Microsoft 365 Copilot. So those of you who have been following Microsoft's announcements, you know that there are a number of different Copilot. There is GitHub Copilot, there's Copilot for Viva, there's Copilot for Dynamics, there's lots of Copilot. So today, again, we will be talking about Copilot for Microsoft 365. Previously, this was only available for organizations at a minimum of 300 seats as part of the early access program. And even when Microsoft opened it up for general availability, it was still a minimum sign up of 300 users. But this has now been removed. So now small organizations or large organizations that just want to purchase a license for a few users can do so. There is still a commitment in terms of 1 year. So you can choose a 1 year or a 3-year commitment, and the cost is $30 per user per month. This is for the business version of Copilot for Microsoft 365. Microsoft has also announced Copilot for consumers, for individuals. There, the price model is a little bit different. But just so that you know, as of now, any organization can purchase and add a Copilot license to their employees. So what about the supported languages? So as of now, these are the supported languages. This does not mean that you can't use other languages. So we've been using Copilot with customers that have been using Arabic and using Swedish. So you can actually speak in other languages, but in terms of the Microsoft supported languages, these are the ones that are currently supported. But of course, Microsoft are working on a long list of other languages that will be supported during 2024. Now, these languages here are in alphabetical order, not in the order of when they will be released. But so just hang in there and so you will have the support for your language as well. Okay, so that's a little bit about the availability and the support from Microsoft. So before I go in and actually demo Copilot in action, I wanted also to talk a little bit about how does it actually work. And I'm not going to go deep down into the technology, but I think it's good to have an overall picture of what is it that's going on behind the scenes when you get your Copilot license. So the way that Copilot works is that the technology itself is built on something called a large language model. So this is, if you think about it, it's almost like statistics, looking at a lot of words. If you think about, let's take a very simple example. Let's take a dog. Well, the words that relate to dog are tail and legs and barking. And so then there's a, statistical chance that these words belong together. So if you take this simple analogy and you take it to everything, thousands and thousands and thousands of articles available on the internet, this model has been trained on that data. So it's very sophisticated in understanding human language. And this is what this large language model does. And so this is when you say that, it's been trained on this. So say that you are using your Copilot. So when you install Copilot and you give a license to a user, the user can use it in their day-to-day productivity tools. And then you can ask it things in normal language. So when we're talking about AI, we're talking about prompting and understanding and knowing how to prompt. Prompting basically means that you're asking for something. You're asking your Copilot for something. So, for instance, list the 5 most important things in the following report. And when you send that to Copilot, it will first check with a large language model. What does this actually mean? What is it that the person is asking for? Then it will go check the data that you have in Microsoft 365. So it will look at the Microsoft graph and it will look at, okay, who is the user that's asking? Does this person have, access? What reports? What other data? Are you asking about people? So it actually knows, who you're working with so that it can give you more relevant information back. And then it will give you the answer. So it's really important to know that it behaves like a human and it's really well written in terms of languages, but it's super important that every user that uses this understands that it's not coming from a human being. So you are always responsible. You need to check and go through the information that comes. So you should really see everything that's created by your Copilot as a draft, a good starting point that can help you get on your way. So with that very high level, simple explanation, I thought that we would go in and actually demonstrate how this works. I can start even here. So you can see here that I am using Microsoft Whiteboard. And down here, you can see that I have a little Copilot prompt. So now I've already created my whiteboard here with the things that I was going to talk about, but you can always get started with Copilot. So here, for instance, even before I started, I said, give me some talking points for doing a presentation with Copilot. And what it gave me was these different topics. So you could do an introduction to Copilot, you could do case studies, you could do Q&A. And even if I don't take this straight off, it is a good starting point. So again, depending on what topic you're looking at, Copilot can help you get started. And the whole idea of Copilot is that it's available to you in your daily productivity tools that you have access to. So I just wanted to show it there since I was using a whiteboard here for my presentation. The other thing where Copilot is extremely useful is in meetings that you have. Let's just show, for instance, this meeting that we have here. So we are in a Teams meeting and I can turn on the Copilot button. So right now, this meeting is being recorded and it's being transcribed, which means that I can ask Copilot about things in this meeting. So here, if I don't want to just ask it straight off, I can look at the prompts. So I can say, okay, recap the meeting so far. And this is, of course, great. You shouldn't be late for meetings, but if you are, it is a good idea that you can go back and you can actually recap the meeting to see what has been demonstrated. So here we can see some of the things that I have been talking about, and it's clearly structured with clear headers of what I've been talking about. So what we can do is we can go back to this meeting question later, and we can ask more questions. So I see that we have a question there. So Magnus, great if you can post it into the chat, and Julianne will pause me and we will take questions along the way. Thank you. So we've talked about the meeting, and I'm speaking in English now. So when you turn on the transcription, you can turn on what language you're speaking to help Copilot to make better sense of your notes. So this is also important that you select the right language. Now, there also is an option. I know that some people have very confidential meetings that they don't allow transcription. There is actually a setting where you can use Copilot for insights into the meeting, even without transcribing the meeting. But then you will not have access to that transcription after the meeting. So it's always best to get into the habit, even if you don't want to record the video for the meeting, to transcribe the video, because then you can always use Copilot to summarize the meeting notes from there. Okay, so let me walk into my other demo environment here to show a little bit. So we looked at Teams and Copilot in the meeting itself. There are other ways where you can engage and interact with Copilot. So just like you know in Teams, you have a number of different apps that you can pin and add to the left-hand side. So if I click the three dots here, I can search for an app. And so here you can see that I've added the Copilot app. Like we said, Microsoft has had a lot of name changes when it comes to Copilot. So when this was first, released, it was actually called the M365 chat, but it is the same thing here when we look at the Copilot app. It is the Microsoft 365 chatbot that you have here as easily available right from within Microsoft Teams. The experience that you see here is almost like a web page when you use the Copilot app, very similar to the browser view that I will show you in the browser for Microsoft 365. But here I can then start engaging with Microsoft 365. Now, there is a setting that you can do, and we'll show this later, that you could choose if you want the M365 chat only to have access to your enterprise data, or if you also want it to be connected to the internet to get access to outside data. So here I can start. Give me the top 5 highlights of the report. And then here you can see that I have my little attachment. I could either click the attachment or I can just do a dash, and this will enable me to reference people or files or meetings that I've had. So here I can say, okay, give me the top highlights of this report. And anything that you want to reference needs to be saved in the cloud, meaning it needs to be saved in your OneDrive, it needs to be saved in a SharePoint site, it needs to be saved somewhere so that it's available in the Microsoft 365 enterprise data. And what I've noticed just using this is that Copilot, it's actually easier for it to find it when it's in your OneDrive. Sometimes it's not as easy to reference a file if it's in one of the SharePoint site, but you can always just paste in the link to a document and ask it to list there. So here we can see I have a PDF report, and this is many, 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 many pages. But instead of having to open it up and skim through it, I can just look at the 5 top highlights. So I can see here that in 2023, marketing budgets have fallen from 9.5% to 9.1%. And I can see a bit more here. So the Copilot also helps me tell me more, summarize the report. So I can continue to get more help and to dive deeper in. So this is using the M365 chat. I can also summarize the conversation I have had with, and then I can put a person here, for instance, and I can even type in a name. So that, and then it will give me the summary. So I can show you how this looks in the chat. So this is Copilot as the app. Like I said, in the chat, you have the same thing. So just like you have your chat buddies, you have your different people, you can add the M365 chat here, M365 chat here as a little chat buddy. And we always recommend that you pin it to the top so that you can always go back and see your history. So for instance, summarize my email and chat communication with Harir, and it gives me a summary of both email and Teams conversations that I've had. And here I can also see my entire chat history that I've had. So again, this is about getting into the habit of starting to see where does it make sense for me to ask these questions? Where do I get more insightful data using these? Sometimes it's super powerful, but sometimes it doesn't find the information that you want. So it's also about testing, seeing what makes sense, where do you get real value from asking these questions. But another thing that's really important is that it becomes better and better. So just like all AI models that learn and grow and become better and better over time, I kind of use the analogy that you should think of your co-pilot as almost like getting a new colleague. And sometimes it's a bit annoying because you feel that you do things better yourself. It takes more time. But after a while, once you really get the hang of it and you have that great collaboration, there's huge benefit having someone that can help you with all of the drudgery and all of the hard work. And since it is built on this powerful language model, it is much better than you are at summarizing and translating or things like that. I could, of course, say it here, draft an introduction to Copilot for my team. And it will draft a little text that I could use and forward into an email, something like that. Here we're using Copilot in the Teams Microsoft 365 chat. And I was writing an introduction here for me that I could copy into an email if I wanted to. Let's maybe pause there just for a second before we move on. Kate and Julianne, do we have some questions that you think that we should bring up so far from the chat?
I think one great question that has come out is, so currently right now, because you have Copilot license, they can see that there's a Copilot, but of course they don't have access to it. So the question is, how does it work even inside an organization or when you're in a meeting? You know, who can see the Copilot and who can interact with it?
Okay, great question. Yes. So, and this is sometimes we say that Copilot gives you superpowers. So it does give you a bit of an advantage because in this situation, I have the Copilot license, which means that I can go in and I can ask these questions and I can get the insights and I can ask it to list the task items. So your Copilot is your own tool. It's for your eyes only. Of course, you should, for the benefit of ours, you can generate meeting notes and you can share them with the rest. But the Copilot really is for your own use.
And then another great question was, does Copilot work with apps only within the Microsoft environment? Or for example, would Copilot read her emails if Apple email is used or a primary email app like a Gmail account?
Okay, so this is perfect. Great question. So again, Copilot uses what's called the enterprise data that you have as part of Microsoft 365. So that means your Microsoft 365 email account and that you have in Exchange online. It uses all of the data that you have in OneDrive and that you have in SharePoint. That's the default. So anything if you add, personal, it can't access that data. However, there are a lot of companies that have secondary data sources or many, many different data sources, ERP systems, CRM systems, any type of work system where they do want Copilot to access that data. And this is where it's so great because the platform is really extensive. So there's something called Copilot Studio, which enables you also to connect your Copilot to other data sources. And here also Microsoft are working with a number of other vendors to ensure that that Microsoft Copilot can be connected even to other data sources. So I would say, again, that the organizations that we've started working with, they're starting with the Microsoft 365 enterprise data. And then there is a plan to connect it to other line of business systems. Because a lot of time you want to get that access. You want to get ticket numbers, you want to get customer IDs, etc. Great questions. So the other question here we had around, can I upload PDF files and start prompting with it? And absolutely, as soon as you upload a PDF document into your, for instance, then OneDrive, you can start asking questions about it. And sometimes it's easier to open up that document. So why don't we do that? Why don't I continue? And I can go into, we'll open up, so we've looked at the Copilot in Teams chat. So let me open it up in the browser itself. So again, if I go to my just office.com or Microsoft365.com homepage, very similar to before, I have Copilot here as an app in the left-hand side. So just like you saw the web interface that I could access through the Teams app, I can do the same wherever I am just through the browser. And I can go here and I can look at my Copilot chats. I can see my whole history here. So I can go back and see answers or summaries or lists that I've used before. So I can always go back and access the history. Now, in addition to having it like this on just the full page, I can use it in my panel. And so I can have it side by side with me all the time. So if I go to my, let's say that I open up this PDF document. So this was the document that I asked it before to summarize for me in just 5 points. So again, say that you have some other PDF document that you want to upload. You upload it to your OneDrive. But what you want to do now is you want to have it kind of side by side and you want to engage and you want to ask things about it. So what you can do is in Microsoft Edge, you have the Copilot button. And like I said, even those of you who are starting just with the Edge Bing Chat Enterprise, that's called just Copilot, you would have access to this. But when you get the Copilot from Microsoft 365, you will get this toggle. So you see this toggle here? Now I'm logged in only with work. So now when I'm here, I have Copilot from Microsoft 365, meaning that I can access my enterprise data. But sometimes you might want to, so here, for instance, I can then ask, in this report, what does it say about marketing budgets 2023? Now I'm just looking at, again, I'm just in work. And I wonder when I say this report, so it's looking at this report. So it gives me kind of the same summary. But now I want to ask about 2024. And I know that we don't have anything about it in 2024. But what I can do then, I can switch to the web. And now I'm like, instead of just looking internally in enterprise data, now I'm looking outside. So here I can say, what are the marketing budget trends for 2024? Now it's looking in the web. So now I'm looking at external data sources. And so here I can see it's bringing up from the internet. Again, it's only picking up a public information, of course. But here I have a good list of some of the research, and it gives me the reference. So it's always good to go back and double check, where does this information come from? But it really, really helps when you're doing research. So again, you can have this when you implement the Copilot for Microsoft 365, you can switch between only looking at your work data and then also switching to the web and then extending the breadth of where you're looking for information. Okay, so that is a little bit about looking at Copilot in the Edge browser. You also, of course, have it in your different tools, in your different applications, in Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Now, we don't have time to go through all of them, but I will show, we can have a look at a few of them. So here I am in Microsoft Word. Now, I'm using here the rich desktop version of Word. For Word, it works absolutely fine with the current version. I'll talk a bit later about Outlook because there we have some differences and some dependencies on the new Outlook. But in Word, it's pretty straightforward. You can start using it right away, both the desktop version and the online version. So you can see here, I have the Copilot logo here to the right. I also have it just hovering so I can start right away to just draft something with Copilot. So again, I can start, and now that I'm using this as part of my company, I can also refer to things. I could refer to existing files that we have, and I could have it rewrite something if I just slightly wanted to change it. So here I could simply write, okay, write a maybe reference letter about my marketing assistant. She has been working with me for 3 years and she is amazing. I warmly recommend her. Of course, you need to, write a lot more and you have to be more specific and you have to write the name and you have to do all of that. But sometimes it could be just really good to kind of get a head start and then you can start filling in your own words. So again, I get a just kind of a first draft. Again, this could be anything. It could be a project outline, it could be a project plan, it could be a reference letter, it could be a blog article, anything that you want to write. Now, what you need to learn again when you start, prompting and engaging with Copilot is that you need to give feedback. Because again, it's not that easy for Copilot to know what this should be all about. So here I could say, I could give feedback. I could say, make it more formal, make it more, yeah, let's do formal then. So I give feedback and then it will, write it back. So again, in terms of learning how to prompt, what's the context? What is it, who is it that you're writing this for? What's it about to help you? Now, again, since your Microsoft 365 Copilot also has access to the people around you and the people that you're working, it will also be able to, now I didn't write a name, but if I had written a name and there was a history, then more applicable data would be able to be brought in. But here's also important that there are a lot of so-called guardrails, like protectors. So if I wanted to write a reference letter to someone and I wanted to write bad things about that person, Copilot would not do it. So it's also kind of built in that it's to help and to support and to do, good things, but not to, write. You couldn't use Copilot to write a really bad description about your company, for instance. So these are these guardrails, and it's also protected that you cannot go and write bad things. So that's good. That's part of the protection that's done there. I'll show you Outlook as well, because I think this is also something that a lot of people love using Copilot to help with all of the email that they have. So let me open up Outlook. Here I am using the new version of Outlook. So right now, the one that we have is the classic version of Outlook. And for Copilot to work on the Windows version, currently you need to have the new version. It still works on the web. It works on the mobile. But Microsoft have also received a lot of feedback. There are a lot of organizations where users not yet want to go to the new version of Outlook. And so they are implementing support also for Copilot in the classic current version of Outlook. But here, for instance, I'm using the new Outlook. I have lots of email. Here's a long email thread. So I can just click Summary by Copilot. So instead of me having to go through the entire thread, what I can do, I can just click Summary by Copilot. So I can see here, what is this email thread about? Okay, I've proposed an LBS, London Business School AI event, and ASEBA have expressed interest. I've confirmed my attendance. So it's just for you to be able to get a good summary of everything that you have here. What I can do is that I can do a reply all. And what you can see here is that once I reply to this email, I get the option to draft this with Copilot. Here, it's also looking at the context of this email thread to give a realistic answer. So here I will just say, yes, that's great. I can confirm my attendance and the date. So I can say, so here Copilot said that, yes, I'm going to be there on the 13th. So I will say I will keep this draft, but of course it doesn't send it off for you. So of course, I'm glad to confirm. And then I could do sincerely, Ulrika. Right now, it just kind of looked at the context, it drafted response for me, and I could choose to keep it before I send. Again, Copilot here is also getting better and better. So soon you will be able to have Copilot even sound like you. So if I normally say sincerely, it's going to put that into the email. If I normally say, cheers or dear or hi, it will start mimicking the way that I write in my email, and it will start sounding more like me, which I think is also really useful, because right now you kind of keep part of it and then you always make it a little bit personal, but also that step you won't have to do later. Okay, now I have been talking and talking. Just so that we go through the rest of the agenda, I wanted to introduce my colleague Midhun, so that we can have a little bit look of Copilot from an admin perspective, and then we'll go to the questions at the end. So, Midhun, hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. So it's always exciting to do live demos, right? You never know what's going to happen with Teams or with the tools. But I think it's also important to show things actually, live. So I'm gonna share, instead of you having to do the live demo, we've prepared, right? Like the chefs, we've
Yeah,
prepared
a
some
little bit.
slides. Yeah. How would you go ahead and get Copilot?
So we are finally excited that Copilot was available for organizations of all sizes, and that meant we could finally purchase a license. So if you want to purchase a Copilot license, you can do so here under Billing, Purchase of Services, in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So for that, preliminary requirement is actually to create a new billing account. There is, I think, an automated process that you can follow through and do it yourself. It's pretty simple. And then here we can just build your plan. So it's either a 1-year subscription or a 3-year subscription. It has to be paid upfront, not a monthly charge.
Okay, so it's definitely, it's not, so for those of you who said, okay, we can try a little bit, we'll put a little group together, we'll try for a few months. That's not an option. It's the pay upfront, 12 months minimum. Okay, so that's good to know. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. So then you do that, you pay, and you start assigning these licenses. And then what happens in the admin center?
And then in the admin center, as you can see, you get a Copilot section. And beware, if you will see this if you're a global admin, and you don't even have to have a license. Someone else can have a license within the tenant. But as a global admin, you will still see this Copilot section in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center.
And like we said before, there's a lot of documentation. Of course, there's a process that you should go through before you start handing out Copilot licenses. Like we said, we talked about this before in the Get Ready for Copilot webinar. Please do not jump over that step, because it's important that you look through your information architecture. So we've highlighted something here about the public web content. What is that setting?
Yes, that's a pretty important setting, I think. This allows Copilot to reference the public content from the internet. So it allows you to, if you want it, you can restrict access. You can restrict your users to not be able to access the internet. You saw from the previous demo that Ulrika showed, there was a work column and a web. You can disable the web and just have work for all users. So it will not.
So basically, then you use Copilot almost like an intelligence and a search, and just using your, your enterprise data, but you're not taking in taking data from it. But I definitely see, that there's a lot of benefit of having this kind of external input as well for your Copilot. Yeah. So, but there's a setting for that there. Great. Now, what about the
Yes.
usage and adoption and training and learning how to use this?
That we can access through the report section under usage. There'll be a new section under reports called Copilot for Microsoft 365 right at the top. Here under usage, you can see how many users are assigned to it, how many are actively using it, and in using what apps are they using the most. So here you can see PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams. They use the most, the users.
And also, we have to say this is very fresh data since this is
just a week old.
Now, when it comes to, I mean, for many, many organizations, this becomes a business executive decision if they're going to, what users are going to have this Copilot license. So how do we then give business users insight into this, the ones that are driving the training and adoption?
Yes, it's a good question. So non-admins can actually see users' Copilot usage via Viva Insights. If we can go to the next slide, here we go. So under settings, under Viva, you will see a new section called Manage Access Settings for Microsoft Copilot Dashboard. Here you can assign any managers or any users you want. They don't even have to have a Copilot license. And here you see 3 examples, and they can access the Copilot dashboard within Teams, within the Viva Insights app in Teams.
So you don't have to get access to some report from the admin center. Instead, you can just use the Viva Insights app, and then you will have a new Copilot dashboard here. Again, we don't have any data to show you here, but this is where you would then see the adoption across the different applications of using Copilot. Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing that from an admin perspective. And I'm going to say again that, we always say that it's so important to look at the usage and to train users and to get them to adopt new tools, but it becomes extra important when you look at a tool like Copilot. The other thing is that you cannot just train people on using Copilot. It's also about teaching them how to use the day-to-day tools that they have access to. But I wanted to introduce as well, you've already met with Julianne. I wanted to hear it from you a little bit, from a business user, but also, I know you're a productivity coach, so you're a bit more advanced than most users. But just if you put on your kind of business user hat, what has been your experience the first couple of days using Copilot?
Yes, it has been very exciting, but absolutely overwhelming, even for us who are playing in the tools on a regular basis and teaching. Some of the things that I found the most exciting for me and time saving is really summarizing those emails as you demonstrated earlier. I absolutely love the meeting notes and recap of a meeting, even if I have been in it from the very beginning. It's fantastic to see, just a quick summary, a question I forgot, but I see the quick summary of what we've been talking about. It reminds me of the question I forgot to ask. Those things have been great. I love being able to use Copilot to, see what the latest conversations I've had with one of my colleagues, either through email or chat or posting. My other favorite piece is I'm still very new, even though I've been using ChatGPT 4 before Copilot, on learning how to prompt properly. And it gives me lots of examples of, here's ideas of things and prompts that you can use to help teach how to use the Copilot and prompt.
And I think here also it's like your imagination. So the other day we had a team meeting, and during our team meeting, everyone kind of shares, and we walked around the table, and then I was like, oh, has everyone shared? And so I asked my Copilot, has everyone shared? It's like, no, Linda has not shared. I'm like, Linda, you haven't shared yet. makes me feel like a better person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful help. And additionally, one of the things I think is still a work in progress is if you're not recording your meeting and you ask Copilot to transcribe the conversations that are happening during your meeting, I found that it's not great just yet, but I'm positive that with more time and it understanding me and my colleagues and the actions we do, it will get much better. Although with the recording, it's fantastic.
Now, I also want to say, so I don't know, I posted yesterday because I got a bit frustrated because I was walking through all of these promotional marketing videos for Copilot, and it looks like super easy. And so I also have to say, for all of you who are attending now, even the things that I showed you today, I showed you things that work. I can tell you out of all the things that work, there are double or maybe more than that just doesn't work. and it takes more time. And it's so I think, this is also extremely important that you set expectations right, that this is still, I mean, I shouldn't say that it's a beta or it's but it's a, a very, very young type of technology, and it's getting better and better, but you need to set the expectations that it's it takes work to get to those really aha moments. Great. Anything else kind of ending off, Julian?
I would just say, as if putting my productivity or trainer hat on, I would say, I think, as you said before, getting started with the Copilot in Edge, whether it's using a different browser, but getting started with that is really a great way to start to understand how you can use these tools. And you'll see that you'll really get a feel for how it can help you, and then it will help you apply that to the other tools when it becomes available to you. But it's definitely, like you said, it's a lot to take in. So taking it step by step, I think is really good so that people actually get more time efficiency out of it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we're going to go to questions, but I'm just going to end off here. So like I said, it's not as easy as it may seem. Certain things are extremely beneficial. Other things you have to really work with, and it also goes through the different applications. Where some applications it's like this works really great here, but with other applications, so for instance with Excel, it takes a little bit more really working with it to see the real value that you get. But again, it is work in progress, and it will just get better and better. So a little bit around next steps. So like we said, we warmly recommend all organizations that we work with to embrace AI and to embrace it within Microsoft 365. It is the future, and you will see enormous productivity gains. But of course, also, it does apply a lot of increase in what you're paying for that license. So you want to make sure that you get most of it. So this is definitely just isn't something you can just turn on and think that you automatically will get a lot of benefits using it. With the right kind of support also, and here you can also put some demands on the user. So we're working with some organizations where we put a process in place that if you do request for a Copilot license, you need to submit a business request. You need to go through training. So here again, as Storyals, we have designed and put together training for Copilot so that your users, even though they won't be fully trained on everything, it will give them a really, really good introduction about what it is and how Copilot works in the various apps. This is something that we always emphasize how important it is to train your users. And then here also, you're going to have them, share experiences, what works, continuous training. So with that, we're going to go to Q&A, but it's 5 minutes before the top of the hour, so I know many of you might have to go to other meetings, so please do. Thank you so much for attending today. You will also get a link to the recorded session, but thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. Now, let's get to Q&A.
So I have a really good question from somebody, Ulrika. Can you please comment on what you think is the minimum requirements regarding user training for Copilot in general, and also maybe any specifics for using Copilot within each Microsoft 365 application?
So this is one of those questions, how long is a string, right? Because it really depends. So like I said, to begin with, you can't just give a license without having that introduction of what it is. And also for people to understand the power of it, but also their responsibility. They are responsible for anything that your Copilot creates. And you can't just say, well, my Copilot told me so. No. This is, it's almost unethical to release a license like that without making sure. So we even in the trainings, we have people sign off that I understand what this technology means. So I would say that is a minimum that you need to have that kind of sign off and that have that introduction training. After that, you need to start looking at different scenarios and different, what is it useful? Because you will have different users that use this extremely different. You might have lawyers that go through, Word and PDFs and summarizes. You might have other users that go more into it. And you don't know that from the beginning. So what we recommend is that you have to have an introduction training for everyone who gets a Copilot license. And then what you do is you can put together specific kind of training sessions where you also then have people, influencers, or champions within your organization that are actively part of that to share knowledge and training within. So definitely, of course, the more the better, but you need to have that first introduction sign off to begin with. Hope that answered the question.
So I'll give you another one, Ulrika, that I think is great. Does using Copilot bring out any personal data of the company, and how is that shared on the web, and how does that work?
Okay, so that's a great question when it comes to information. So again, Copilot in itself doesn't introduce any new information access that you as a user don't already have access to. So but the way that you can think about it is that you don't know where to look for all the information. You don't know, and have the time to go through. Whereas for Copilot, it's really easy. So you could easily ask, what SharePoint sites do I have access to? And what is the trade license number for this company? And if you already today have access to that information, then it will be easier to find with Copilot. But Copilot in itself does not introduce any new, information access. But that's, again, why it's so important that you look through your information architecture. Lots of teams, the Microsoft Teams, that maybe they should be private, but they're public. SharePoint sites that are open to everyone, but they should not be open to everyone. So all of these things is a due diligence that you need to go and do. You should do it anyway, but it's even more important to do so with Copilot. Okay, it's only 1 minute left, so we are going to end now. But again, thank you so much to all of you who have attended. And it's been great seeing you all here during the webinar. Thank you.